Hi, and welcome to an in-box review of the new Italeri H-34 helicopter. I'm going to try a slightly new way of doing this in-box video, hopefully a little more organised with clear images and a way that will pass across what can be discerned from just looking at the contents of the box. What can be learnt from actually building the kit will follow in a second video, hopefully pretty quickly. So, the Sikorsky H-34 was a piston engine helicopter developed by Sikorsky in the early 50s. It entered service with the US Navy in 1954 and has served with 25 countries with over 2,000 being produced. Sikorsky ended production in 1970. It was one of the last piston engine helicopters ever produced, and in fact Westland Helicopters in the UK swapped out the piston engine for a turbine and produced the Westland Wessex. West Germany bought 110 H-34Gs, and one of the two variants in this kit is a West German Navy Search and Rescue H-34G helicopter. The other variant in the kit is a UH-34J, which was an SH-34J with the ASW equipment removed and used as a utility and training helicopter by the US Navy. So, the kit arrives in a sturdy top-opening box. This is a new kit from Italeri, and on the box top it says, quote, fully upgraded moulds. This kit is based on Italeri's 2012 Westland Wessex kit, with updated sprues to reflect the differences between a Wessex and an H-34. All the sprues are slightly different from the ones in the 2012 and subsequent re-releases. The quality of the sprues is very good. The kit contains two large sprues bagged individually, two identical medium-sized sprues bagged together, a small clear parts sprue in its own bag, a small PE fret in a separate bag with a card backing, and also in that same bag is a plastic mesh. There's also one medium-sized deckle sheet and an instructional manual of 12 mostly black and white pages. In total they come to 110 plastic parts, 8 clear parts and 24 PE parts. So let's get the ball rolling and have a look at the sprues and see what we can initially notice. Looking at sprue A, we have lots of nice details with fine panel lines on the fuselage halves. The gearbox rear cover, A22, has see-through grills. The interior of the fuselage halves has a couple of ejector pin marks that might be visible if someone was really looking for them, but I'm probably being a bit picky there and these probably will be really tough to see. Sprue C is the clear parts and they look very nice. The cockpit side windows have the correct bulge to them. Sprue B is another large one but isn't packed with parts. In my box one of the nose engine doors had come loose, but it was undamaged as it was still held inside the packing bag the sprue came in. The cabin seats have nice fabric-like details on them. Sprue D, both of them, have nice droop to the main rotor blades and a good undercarriage wheel detail. The photo etch fret looks nicely detailed and we'll see how it behaves when we build the kit. Okay, so now let's have a look at the instructions and see what the 12 pages, 11 steps and 2 Deckle Options can tell us. The front covers the usual stuff. It tells us the scale, kit number, the 2 variants of the H-34 we can build. Then there's the little bit of info about the helicopter in 6 languages: English, Italian, German, French, Spanish and Russian. Page 2 shows you the layout of sprues A and C and the painting references for the 8 colours that could be used on the kit. The colours are referenced in Federal Standard numbers and Italeri paints. There are 2 parts on sprue O that will not be used. They're probably left over from earlier variants of this kit. Page 3 gives the layout for the remaining sprues and the small photo etch fret. On page 4 we actually start building the kit, and this page is completely taken up with step 1. At the top and bottom of the page are 2 identical steps making the pilot and co-pilot seats respectively. Each seat is pretty simple and straightforward with 3 pieces of plastic, 4 pieces of photo etch. In the centre of the page, these are all brought together along with the flying controls, a nicely detailed cockpit floor and centre console, and rear bulkhead to form most of the cockpit. Step 2 is at the top of page 5 and builds the passenger cabin with 8 passenger seats that have some nice fabric detail on them. A lot of this will be in the dark recesses of the cabin though. Step 3 starts by putting together a rudimentary gearbox, which also forms the roof of the passenger cabin. The fact it's a rudimentary and simplified gearbox is not an issue since this area will hardly be visible when the kit is complete. If you want to open up the panels and add your own details, then you have a good base to start from. Then this assembly, along with the cockpit and cabin assemblies, are combined to form the bulk of the interior of the helicopter. Step 4 takes the whole of page 6 and starts with drilling some holes that will get used towards the end of the build and putting some windows into the two cockpit halves. The hub for the tail rotor is attached to the port side of the fuselage before the cockpit and cabin assembly is trapped between the two cockpit halves. Step 5 adds the bottom of the aircraft along with the undercarriage legs. There's also a couple of aerials added at this point, but I'll probably save those until the end of the build, as otherwise I will almost definitely knock them off. Note that this bottom piece needs to be pre-drilled before you put it in place, or else the undercarriage legs won't fit later on. Some detail at the front of this panel will be covered over by a piece of photo etch, so there's not too much point in spending any time painting it in too much detail. Step 6 finally sees the instrument panel put together with a photo etch panel on top of a decal. This fits inside the two nose pieces. There's a rudimentary representation of the top of the engine, which is nice since you might just about see it through the three grills. There's no bottom of the engine though, although this would be completely invisible anyway. Aries do make a resin Cyclone 1820 engine with photo etch details if you wanted to build the kit with the engine bay doors open. Remember, there's supposed to be a panel line down the nose where these two nose doors join. There's 3 photo etch grills fitted to the nose, the largest of which will need some careful bending. I'll let you know how that goes. Step 7 puts the nose on the aircraft and the cover on top of the rear gearbox. In step 8 we start adding some smaller external details. The main canopy goes in place with an overhead instrument panel fitted inside it. I'm sure some of the smaller pieces will wait till the end of the build so as not to be knocked off as the model is handled. Step 9 adds the sliding door either in the open or closed position along with the winch. Step 10 adds the port and starboard cockpit windows. Again, these can be fitted in the open or closed positions. Step 11 adds the main and tail rotors and a few more small final details. The mesh cover on top of the main gearbox can be done with either a piece of photo etch or via some careful cutting of the supplied plastic mesh. The next 2 pages cover the 2 Deckle options of this kit. Interestingly, both aircraft use gloss orange, that's Federal Standard 12197, but on the images used on the 2 sheets, the colour varies quite significantly. Caracal Deckles did the UH-34J scheme for the same aircraft on the same base in the same year, 1968. They did this in 2013. Interestingly, they called it a UH-34D and had the stars and bars under the fuselage in a slightly different position. I suspect Italeri is correct here though, since the UH-34D was built for the US Marines, not the US Navy like this aircraft is, and the underside stars and bars look like they're supposed to line up with the ones on top of the fuselage in other photographs online. So overall, this is a nicely detailed kit with a couple of good bright decal options. Should be a pretty simple kit to build, no real problems apparent from just looking in the box. I'm quite looking forward to building this one. It should be a good kit. It should cost around $35.50 depending where in the world you live. Watch out for the build review coming as soon as I can get it done. And many thanks to Italeri for the review sample.